This is a remarkable achievement. What you're seeing here is the last photon orbit. What you are seeing is evidence of an event horizon. By laying a ruler across this black hole, we now have visual evidence for a black hole. We now know that a black hole that weighs 6.5 billion times what our sun does exists in the center of M87. And this is the strongest evidence that we have to date for the existence of black holes. And it is also consistent, the shape of this shadow, to the precision of our measurements with Einstein's predictions. The bright patch in the south that you see tells us that material moving around the black hole is moving at light speeds, which is also consistent with our simulations and predictions. And this image forges a clear link now between supermassive black holes and the engines of bright galaxies. We now know clearly that black holes drive large-scale structure in the universe from their home in these galaxies. And we now have an entirely new way of studying general relativity in black holes that we never had before. And as with all great discoveries, this is just the beginning. So imaging a black hole doesn't come easily. I can tell you that from personal experience.
And that looks exactly to me like the good old black sun, okay, the same old, same old. And we were looking at this yesterday, and I showed you how they actually refer to these as dark stars, okay? That is a literal alternative term for these because of the mass of 1,000,000 times our sun that is in the center of this. So they claim, okay? This is what they tell us, okay? So they reveal this first picture of it, and it looks just strikingly like a black sun, because that's really what it is. And I just want to show you, it's like, how do you ignore these things when they're doing it right in front of your face? Now, I showed you about Enoch and the courses of the luminaries yesterday, and you need to understand that there is a dark side to everything, all right? And this is real stuff, and it's common, information that you can get, but people are just unaware of the power of this and what it really means. This Enochian magic was the work of a couple of guys named John Dee and Edward Kelly. And it was also picked up by the likes of Aleister Crowley. Let's see, all kinds of interesting names in here that have picked up on this. But John Dee and Edward Kelly were the fathers of it. And those guys were the early astronomers. These were the ones who set the pace for modern science, okay, through alchemy and through sigils that they would conjure these spirits and garner the knowledge. This is just simply how it works. It is a spiritual war, and they use these sigils of various kinds to bring in these various spirits and gain the knowledge, but they have to give up things in the end, namely their soul. And this is what they do. The scrying, the black magic rituals, it's all very common. It's alive and well today, except now they call these people NASA and Space Israel. Okay, that's the only difference between then and now. It's gotten a little more sophisticated. Okay, now I was showing you also, or did I show you? I can't remember. the pop culture related to this. The black hole sun, the dark star, black hole sun. I mean, if you haven't heard that song, then I don't know where you've been, but this is one of the most popular songs of all time, at least in that genre. But this gentleman, Chris Cornell, who wrote the song, suicided himself in 2017. Okay, Black Hole Sun. Another very famous entertainer who died in 2016, named David Bowie, his last record was called Black Star. Okay, very interesting album cover there. And this is all Enochian magic. That's what it is. And he died at the age of 69, just 2 days after the release of this album. And if you were to look into this, it would make you vomit, because, I mean, there was a video attached to this album of his called Black Star. And if you look at this, man, it is some of the most unbelievably evil, in-your-face, blasphemous garbage that you could ever watch. But yet, it's some of the most popular things in our entire society.
Showing that David Bowie is alive and well, playing the character of Jack Stephen, a supposed music industry executive with Fortress Music. I received a few messages from people stating there is a Jack Stephen on VMO. Let's compare the two. One thing I noticed right away, the teeth are not the same. I'm going to break this down a little bit here. Then I'm going to play the clips with David Bowie speaking and Jack Stephen, the supposed Jack Stephen from a few years back. Let's take a look at this image here. And this is the Jack Stephen from VMO in that video I'm going to show in a bit. But let's take a look at David Bowie and his teeth here. And that smile, you see no gap whatsoever in these teeth. And look at Jack Stephen, or supposed Jack Stephen, who's nothing more than David Bowie. No gap whatsoever. Unbelievable. I'm going to play some video clips. Again, with Jack Stephen speaking, you can clearly see that gap. I got a little bit of a close-up. You can definitely tell that this character, Jack Stephen, and David Bowie's playing that character, Jack Stephen. And who knows what happened to the real Jack Stephen, but nonetheless, David Bowie is alive and well. And he showed up on Sky News playing the character Jack Stephen.
I've been asked here as a complete outsider to talk about Dallas's music scene. I have to stress that I am here on vacation, and I'm spending a lot of time in Dallas because I have a girlfriend here who I've fallen in love with at my grand old age of 53. Girlfriend here who I've fallen in love with at my grand old age of 53. Friend here who I've fallen in love with at my grand old age of 53.
First, sum up how you felt this morning when you heard this news.
I was just saying earlier that I actually felt that part of me had died. I mean, I have to say that's how much an influence he is, I think, to me and to thousands and millions of people around the world. And strangely, I'm surprised. I sort of lived through John Lennon's death, Elvis's death, and sadly, this one's affected me more than any other. I mean, it's a very strange thing.
Just saw this news article with Elton John talking about being on drugs, David Bowie, in a conversation with Vladimir Putin. Interesting enough, it also mentions his release of his 33rd album. Take a look here at this article at the very bottom. As I covered before, the David Bowie hoax. Nothing but a staged event, just another fake death, like so many throughout history. It states here, I knew he had a heart attack on stage in Berlin years ago, but not about the cancer. Everyone else, take note of this. Bowie couldn't have staged a better death. It was classy. How obvious can it be? They're telling you in these news articles, as I covered before with Angie Bowie, saying the same thing about David Bowie staging his death.
In fact, let me take this opportunity to say that I think he staged his passing rather well.
I just saw this video clip with TMZ talking about David Bowie's death. It's a complete joke. I mean, just look at the white rabbit in the background here. This, of course, represents going down the rabbit hole. Understand one thing, of course, with TMZ, just like CNN, owned and controlled by Time Warner, one and the same. And this is how they do it. TMZ for the younger crowd and CNN for the older crowd. The game is rigged. Those that control the media control the minds. Let's take a listen to this guy here talking about David Bowie's death. Completely ridiculous how they love to mock. Just take a listen.
Very sad news. David Bowie, rock legend, dead at the age of 69. Hey guys, it's Eric. David Bowie passed away after an 18-month battle with cancer, surrounded by his family. He just released his new album on a Friday, January 8th. That was also his birthday, his 69th birthday. And now his producer, Tony Visconti, is saying that this was all kind of planned.
All kind of planned. Wouldn't you think? Of course it was all planned. The passing, of course, 2 days after the release of the album. Of course, it's going to boost sales. David Bowie is doing this at this time to get away from the public eye. This is what so many celebrities have done in the past. After they've done their time, they're going into retirement, out of the public's eye. All the time involved, just like they stated. Now let's take a look at this news article where it states this is David Bowie smiling just weeks before his death, his supposed death, of course. Now, he knows these are going to be his last public photos that are ever going to be taken. That's why you see this big smile. This man was not battling cancer. If you believe that, you're deceived 100%. This man would be in a wheelchair. He would not be in this situation, this state. You know, after 18 months, you coming down to your final days. There's no way you would look like this. How obvious can it be? Of course, they don't give an exact date of that photo. They just say weeks before his death. Scroll down here a little bit. I find this photo a little bit interesting. Just take a look at his fingers. Like almost like two hooks, two devil horns almost. Get a close up here of this one photo. And this is the one that's actually dated December 7th. I can get down to it. This one here, in public. You know, if he was going through chemotherapy, there's no way he would have this full head of hair. And say, for example, he was, you know, going through chemotherapy and he let his hair grow back, it would not grow back evenly. It grows back in chunks, not even, like I said, with all these fake news stories. Nothing ever adds up, nothing ever makes sense. Because it's all fabricated. That's all they give us is lies. CNN, Fox News, you know, these fake deaths. This world is nothing what it seems.
10 breadcrumbs we know about the black sun. Number 10. First, some context. In Mayan culture, the black sun represents the Osirian butterfly that devours people during the solar eclipse. Also in ancient Egypt, the black sun represents the hidden sun or invisible sun. That is the secret order behind the visible. It means a number of things depending on where in the world you are. And of course it has many meanings. Number 9. The most recent use of the black sun is seen in none other place than the Nazi swastika. Many believe the symbol was co-opted from the 4 Vedas in Hindu religion, but although that may be so, the meaning behind it has nothing to do with Hinduism. It stands for the black sun itself. Number 8. The black sun was brought into Hitler's own iconography from his mentor, Helen Blavatsky, who within her mystic circles used to use the iconography of the black sun itself. But what other evidence is there that the Nazi swastika means the black sun, and it in fact has links directly to the inner occult system of the Nazi party? Well, number 7. The Nazi SS had this in their occult castle, which literally translates to the black sun. This is the true version of what the swastika is. Remember, what is shown in public is only ever the outer symbolism in the occult. The inner symbolism is often hidden from the public. symbolic. So here you see the actual black sun itself. This black sun you see here on the floor is actually in the tomb where the ashes of fallen SS soldiers were held. So here we have a direct connection between the black sun and occult mysticism to the inner workings of the Nazi Party themselves. Number 6. It's worth noting that the SS castle, which was designed by Himmler himself, is actually the shape of a large triangle. This will mean something later, but for now, suffice it to say that the circular pattern at the end of the castle, the largest one, references in fact the black sun. Number 5. In a recent video, I put forward the research by clinical psychologist D.C. Hammond. When he was treating his patients, he found that they were reciting a similar mono-narrative. He found this narrative repeated by victims of the MK Ultra mind control experiment conducted by the CIA. He stated that the program started as part of Operation Paperclip, where Nazi scientists were brought over from Germany after the war. Now these were all very high-ranking Nazis. That is, the academic kind of Nazi that's climbed up the ladder. So it was founded by Nazis, you might say. They were taken to the United States to head mind control programs. So what? What does this have to do with the Black Sun? Well, it has to do with the Black Sun because the Nazis that were brought over were high-ranking Nazi insiders. Now, not only did whistleblowers and the victims of these mind control programs say that they were installed with Satanism as an ideology, but in fact, a number of people who worked on the program, whistleblowers, said in fact that the Nazi scientists themselves were in fact Satanists, the real type of Satanists, not the type of Satanists that go out and practice Satan to troll people, but the real type of Satanism. So this gives us an inside track into what the Black Sun actually means in the inner circles of those in high positions of the Nazi Party. Number 4. So what about the Black Sun, you might say? How does it really link to anything? Well, because I think that the same Nazi iconography is in fact used today. The Black Sun is used at the heights of power, at least within the United States. Number 3. This mural is famous. It's a mural from the Bank of America. Now look at the black sun in the sky. Do you see that large black sun rising? That's right. This is the exact same black sun that is projected in Nazi occult practices. Now I'm not saying this is a hidden Nazi swastika. What I'm saying is it stands for the occult symbol that the Nazi swastika had on the outside. This is in fact a hidden secret symbol behind the front Nazi swastika. But there is more to this artwork than we see on the surface. As with all occult symbolism, something else is hidden. Number 2. What happens if we mirror this artwork? Take a look. We get this. This is on the surface a reference to Masonic symbolism, but it is fundamentally different. Now, of course, there are references here with Masonic symbolism. The checkered floor, for example, the fact that Jacob's ladder is on the left-hand side, the sun and moon on the pillars. But as you can see, even with me repeating this, all those things are fundamentally different. For instance, the checkered floor is not black and white, it's red and white. There's not one sun. In fact, there's no sun. There's only a black sun, and now there's 2 of them. Jacob's ladder has also been replaced by a staircase. So what does this mean? Well, this means that this is a type of corrupted symbolism from Masonic traditions that's been changed somehow. From what root system it originally came from, I just don't know. But I can say, although it seems like it follows many of the Masonic root systems, such as similar iconography to the Tale of Solomon's Temple, it is actually very different. It almost seems far more ominous. Now note also the large red banner in front of the child and the fact that this is repeated within Nazi symbolism. Also note, of course, the black sun, which reflects Nazi symbolism. But what I want you to really focus on for this, because it's going to connect onto our next bit of information, is the prism. Now I'm well aware that the cube itself is a fundamental component of of Masonic tradition. However, this I don't think is a cube. I think it has a completely different meaning, is in fact a type of prism or glass box. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, number one, the strangest airport in the world is none other than Denver Airport. And I know a lot of you are aware of Denver Airport, but just bear with me a moment and see how this connects. Denver Airport is really at the heart of a lot of conspiracy theories, since it went billions of dollars over budget and has what can only be described as one of the horsemen of the apocalypse minus its rider standing out front. It has long been rumored to be a massive underground bunker of some kind that is under the airport, a type of hideaway for the elites. There is a plaque at the front that states it's a gift from the New World Airport Commission, of all things. But in order to reference the prior, we're going to have to look at the murals. These are the very strange murals that were in Denver Airport. They depict a cataclysmic event in the future, at which point many people die. Then there is a period of, I guess, rebirth after the disaster. But I want you to look at the glass prisms. They feature repeatedly, that is around animals and other things, as noted prior in the Bank of America mural. But what connections are there with the Bank of America mural, really, apart from this being a very ominous mural in the Denver airport, and of course the Mayan symbolism here, which also note the black sun reference because the black sun is a part of heavy Mayan tradition. Well, there's this. There's the black sun itself, which is on the floor of the airport, a huge black sun inlaid into the floor of the airport itself, and you can even see the rotations of the different planets around the black sun. If you look closely, you can even see the slight glow of yellow light around the black sun. That is the halo. This is because this is the black sun that's eclipsing the actual sun. So okay, you might say, there's a black sun and it says New World Order, and there's some other strange things, and the airport itself kinda looks like a SWAT sticker. Also note this black sun, which is inlaid into the bottom of the Hoover Dam. So these three examples are just a few examples really of what's out there. I guess my overarching theory is that the black sun is closely related to Satanism and a type of corrupted form of Freemasonry. There definitely seems to be something very strange happening here. Something weird that has a Nazi connection to World War II and Satanism. So what's going on? These are the symbols of a very powerful organization, a group that's so powerful that they can put their iconography all around an airport that costs billions of dollars. They've got it in the Hoover Dam, they've got it in the Bank of America, and I would guess there's many places where they've got this type of symbolism, which proves that they have a strong hold and position in power. But at the end of the day, guys, we'll just have to decide for yourselves what to believe. I am, of course, just bringing the breadcrumbs I find, trying to connect the dots.
Hey guys, so I'm looking at these rendered images of this black hole discovery that was made, quote unquote, right? Because we don't know what's real anymore. And what I'm looking at here is the 666 hand sign. This is unbelievable. Again, these were unrendered data images released before the final image, which is much more blurry. And what you're looking at is the 666 hand sign, as well as the CERN logo, which we know is a 666 as well. Now this is bizarre because we know that these supposed black holes are the spiral gates. And if you look at images of Quetzalcoatl, which we compared CERN to the actual letter Q, you will see that Quetzalcoatl has many spirals on him, depicting him as a god that passes through gates, which in antiquity, this is what was said about the legend of Quetzalcoatl, that he had this spiral gate on his head. So you mean to tell me these people all the way back then in ancient times knew about black holes? Well, black holes are not black holes at all. They're gates to the abyss. They're gates to evil. Here you see the spiral on the side of his head. Now we know what this means. All these celebrities posting these hand signs over the eye. As we just showed you in the live show that I did today, the eye is the gate. You can either go within to the kingdom of heaven, or you look outside and you're deceived by what you see. And all these people know it because they all serve the devil. Take care and be safe, you guys.
You said that you think when they're ready to hit the button, the Polaris star would have to be at a certain point.
You know, that goes back to a discussion that you and I had a long time ago about Polaris, the North Star, and you had asked me, does the Large Hadron Collider have to be in alignment with the North Star? And I hadn't really thought of that because that's more an area of your research than it is of mine, but it made a lot of sense to me. And as you began to describe how relating the movement around the North Star of the Little Dipper, and that it mimics, when you look at it graphically, that movement revolving around like a clock of the Dipper, that it looked like the Nazi swastika.
Yeah.
And that really opened my eyes because the connection is to the Nazi research, to the Nazi bell, to the Glock, the Nazi bell project. And I won't go into a long tangent on that, but the LHC is the outgrowth of the project known as the Bell from World War II and the Nazis' use of the occult and the rituals and getting information from the other side for their own military purposes. And that's what CERN is all about. It is an advancement. It's an outgrowth of that early Nazi research. So looking at a probable Nazi connection to the swastika and the North Star, Polaris, makes a lot of sense that there would be a reason for them to worship and use the swastika in that fashion and connect it to the Large Hadron Collider because we know that they are totally into the occult.
The IBM punch cards and with them communicating with the other side and everything that they're doing is CERN is doing today. It's just on a bigger scale with more technology, with actually more information, I guess, with alchemy and the Emerald Tablet and all of those things. The biggest thing I think is that, like you said, there has to be something significant happen above in order to happen below when they open up this portal. We know that there's going to be a birthing of the Antichrist. The code 666 and the Antichrist and the birthing of the Antichrist, which we know that Revelation says Satan's throne is in Pergamum, and we know that that is the same throne that Hitler preached off of. It's the same throne that Obama preached off of. And here we have Jupiter, which it is Zeus's throne. It's Jupiter's throne. And Jupiter represents Saturn. And just understanding that the Bible talks about the throne of Satan being Jupiter. We know that Jupiter is worshipped in Mithraism. I have been able to piece together through my studies as the resurrected Saturn, because we know that Saturn fell, and then the Ogdode, in my calculations, I know that it was in around 2600 BC. And that is when the Ogdode happened in history, when we have all the ancient texts and writing about Amon and the 8 deities that we've talked about before. And this is who the occult worship. And I've actually proved that through so many things, through revealing the occult and the symbology, not only the symbology, but just throughout history. So it's just fascinating that you bring up the fact about the Nazi bell with all of this information, the swastika, and with Hitler, and then them wanting to repeat the same thing but on a grander scale, because Hitler used the technology from IBM. I mean, every president has had an astrologer, even the Queen does. What was his name? John Dee. These people are surrounded by pretty sick people. I mean, they're in the Saturn cults, and they're the sex magical cult, just like JPL was connected to that foundation of NASA, and just like the United Nations tied to Lucifer's Trust and all of the Lucifer organizations built on all of those things and those foundations. This is their whole belief system. These are the things that have been hidden from us for so long that are coming out because the technology, this technology I think that we see today it's been here for even longer than what we've known about it. It's been hidden from us. And so they're just doing things based on a certain alignment, like you said. So the veil is going to be torn. They have the ability to do it.
But Jack Parsons was possessed with extraordinary ideas that sought far loftier heights than mere space rocket designs. Parsons was fascinated by the occult, and in 1941 he was to join the Pasadena chapter of Ordo Templi Orientis, Aleister Crowley's secret society. Not long after, Parsons took over the Agape Lodge himself. Observing Parsons' natural aptitude for ritual sex magic, called Thelema, the membership saw him as a potential successor to the great beast Aleister Crowley himself, whom Parsons addressed as Most Beloved Father. Born on October 12, 1875 in Warwickshire, England, Aleister Crowley was an English occultist, ceremonial magician, poet, painter, novelist, and mountaineer. He was responsible for founding the religion and philosophy of sexual magic, Thelema, in which role he identified himself as the prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Aeon of Horus in the early 20th century. In 1898 he joined the esoteric Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, where he was trained in ceremonial magic. Like many of that era, Crowley was something of a crusading militant intellectual, determined to break down the conventions of accepted social morality. Later he traveled to Mexico and then India to study Hindu and Buddhist practices. In 1904 he married Rose Edith Kelly, and they honeymooned in Cairo, Egypt. In the Great Pyramid, Crowley conducted an occult ritual intending to access supernatural powers. The black magic ritual held in the Great Pyramid marked an unexpected turning point in Crowley's life. The following day he recounted, "Rose got into a strange state of mind. I had never seen anything like it before. She kept on repeating, dreamily yet intensely, 'They are waiting for you. They are waiting for you.'" When Crowley asked Rose who was waiting, she kept repeating that it was Horus, an Egyptian god. Rose knew nothing of magic and even less of Egyptology, making it highly unlikely that she was receiving a message from the gods. But to test what Rose was saying, he took her to the Cairo Museum. And although Rose had never visited the museum before, she rushed through the rooms filled with ancient artifacts, until suddenly she stopped dead before case number 666. "There he is," she insisted. Within the case was the image of the god she claimed to have seen in her vision, the god Horus. Over the next 3 days, at precisely the same time, an unearthly voice dictated to Crowley the Book of the Law, the book that would become the Bible of his new religion. Following their fateful ritual in the Great Pyramid, Crowley's wife Rose mysteriously proclaimed that the equinox of the gods has come. The alleged superhuman intelligence contacted by Aleister Crowley during his visit to Egypt was named Aiwass, who declared, "I am a god of war and vengeance," and then dictated to Crowley a work called the Book of the Law, which prophesied wars and revolutions, leading to the collapse of Christian civilizations and the dawn of the Aeon of Horus. Crowley's Bible also proclaims the law of Thelema, usually summed up in 3 mantra-like verses. "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. And every man and every woman is a star." According to another Crowley student, Kenneth Grant, Aiwass is an extraterrestrial from Sirius, the stellar representation of the Egyptian goddess Isis.
There is a very serious spiritual war going on for your soul. And they're about to have some groundbreaking results come from a black hole hunting Event Horizon Telescope. Now, This is crazy because the whole flat earth situation, right? The firmament. That's what you're looking into when you look up, okay? And it's like everything else of God. Even the angels seek to know this stuff. Even Satan, one of the angels, seeks to know these things because he doesn't know all these things. These black holes, and this just came to me as I was looking around today, are nothing more than the portals, if you will, of the sun and the moon and whatnot that are explained in Enoch. Okay? Now, Enoch is a legitimate book just based on the fact that it's mentioned all over the Bible. And this is where I came across this today, is in Jude. Okay? I was just led there. And it comes to where, you know, the wandering stars, whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints. Now, as far as dissecting this prophecy, I just see things that just come into my spirit that I'm like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. That they're wandering stars, okay, which we can refer to angels as stars, fallen angels, wandering stars, all these various characterizations, but we know that we're looking up at the hosts of heaven, but we're looking at it through a firmament, through a glass, through a sea of whatever God has there, because that's as far as you can go. I mean, they've even tried to shoot things through this stuff, you guys. I mean, you can look this stuff up yourself, but they literally shot nukes like almost 700 miles up into the space. They can't go any further. You can only go a certain distance, and that's it. Nothing goes any further. And that's the way it is. And these black holes, I believe, are just portals because they see them everywhere. And if you read Enoch, right, he talks about all the portals. You know, he was shown by the angel Uriel, you know, the first law of the luminaries. The luminary, the sun, has its rising in the eastern portals of the heaven and its setting in the western portals of heaven. And I saw 6 portals in which the sun rises, and 6 portals in which the sun sets. The moon rises and sets in these portals. You see what I mean? There is so many things going on up there that when we're looking at it, it's like, I love images, but I don't have a lot pertaining to this. But basically, we're looking through here, and we see these luminaries and everything that's set in the firmament, but we don't know what we're looking at, absolutely. We really don't. But the powers that be have a much better idea than we do. They know what it is, and they know that they want to ascend there without facing any judgment, okay? Do what thou wilt is the whole of their law, okay? And that's what they want to do. And so they're doing all these science things, which, you know, most of the scientists are even deceived through the magic of math that Satan has been working on for thousands of years. You go back 500 years when the real sorcerers gained all this sudden knowledge of how the earth is actually going around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour with no parallax at all, right? It's ridiculous on its face. And these black holes, I believe, could have something to do with the portals that Enoch is talking about. That's all I'm saying. And they want to find a way that they can control something referring to the sun and the moon so that they can change something referring to the sun and the moon. I mean, that would be one heck of a deception if they could figure a way, you know, based on these portals. I mean, when we see eclipses and the like, there's no accident why the moon and the sun are exactly the same size and all these various things. And Enoch spells it all out, but I don't really fully understand it. But I understand enough to know that nothing is going into outer space. It's just not happening. Period. What we see is something far beyond what most people can even imagine. But if you look at it from a spiritual, biblical point of view, you know that there's a spiritual war going on above you, and it's manifesting itself in the earth through all these evils and lusts and all this darkness that people are talking about now, days of darkness. They want to be able to make days of darkness. The evil ones would love to be able to create 3 days of darkness, because that would just allow them to fool the world. I mean, these are the things they're up to, the devices they're devising. It goes to that depth. So, you got to just keep these things in mind. Nothing they tell you is what it seems. It's just unfortunately that way. And most of them are deceived. So you got to pray for them. You got to pray that they come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ and know that they can't figure this stuff out with all their PhDs and math certificates. It's all a big lie. You can't lean on our own carnal understanding. But they're going to keep trying. You better believe it. And they'll take as many of us down with them as they can. So always be armored up. That's all I can tell you. It is of paramount importance. All of this stuff, it's just fakery, ritualistic magic to deceive the world. But most of the people that work at these agencies are compartmentalized and deceived. But a lot of them aren't. It is that evil, and people will go to that lengths for a job, for a paycheck. They'll sign a non-disclosure, and they'll become actors for NASA or for Space IL. This is the way it works. It's unfortunate that there's that depth of evil in the world, but this is what people need to face and turn to Christ, because he is the only truth. You're never going to figure it out on your own, and time's getting short. So I hope this made sense to someone. I truly do. And peace and grace to y'all. Many fish.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armour of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armour of God,